The following is a presentation of William Patterson University Television.
Welcome back to the desk. The William Patterson football season has come to a close. The William Patterson crew is coming in hot, and that is Jimmy, Marc, John, and Andrew. And we're going to break down everything from Whiteman Stadium. Now, question one, gents, skill position, they always get a lot of the shine. That happens. They catch the balls, they pass the ball. But let's go to the trenches, guys. Andrew, we'll start with you. From this season, who was the best offensive or defensive lineman this season?
Richie Skye. He has 3 all-time NJAC selections, and breaking news today, it was released, he has 4 now, second all-team this year. Greatest center ever, in my opinion. 34 games started, he blocks, gets everything done, gets it done for everyone. John?
I'm sticking with Andrew here. We're going with Richie Skye. And even without all of his honorable selections and honorable mentions, he'd still be my best guy because he's a giant influence on the team. I have a quote from his teammate Matt Romano. Richie is a great leader. He knows what's happening for every position on offense. He's a huge role model for many of us and always gets us fired up. So someone like that on a team, I think, is extremely important.
Yeah, I would assume so. And, as being a center, he is the leader of the offensive line. So, he knows everything. He knows what everybody's supposed to do, where everybody's supposed to be in position. The center, I think, is the most important position. As somebody who's played center before, very important position. Marc, who do you have?
I'm going to flip it to the defensive side, and I'm going to take Nasir Adams. Now, on the season, he had 41 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, 3 QB hits, and a fumble recovery, and also had a pass breakup. So getting some, pressure from the edge, forces a pass breakup. I think that makes things huge for the secondary, and I think that he is a phenomenal defensive lineman.
I think so too. We called his name every time during Brave New Radio's broadcast that I've called, that I've produced as well. We've called his name every time because he's always making plays. Jimmy, who do you have?
I got the Swiss Army knife of the defense of William Patterson. Elijah Bell is my guy. He's got 31 total tackles on the season, 6 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. He's also top 10 in the NJAC in pass breakups. This guy is chaotic all over the field, line inside and outside. He just wreaks havoc on opposing offense.
Now, you two just talked about the defensive side of the ball. These two guys over here talked about the offensive side. We've talked about a lot of the skill positions many times on when we talked about the football team here. But, gentlemen, let's keep it simple, and Marc, we'll start with you. Who is your defensive player of the year for the William Patterson Pioneers?
For me, it's got to be Devin Vont. If you take a look, 37 total tackles, 2 interceptions, 9 pass breakups, 2 tackles for loss, and even a sack on the season. Now, focusing on those 9 pass breakups, that makes things huge for the defensive line. If you have a corner that he's going to get thrown to, and he can force and make a play on the ball, that makes things easier for the defensive line to get pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew?
Sean Maldonado, a wrecking ball in that defense. As we take a look here, 10 games, 60 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 1 fumble recovery, and there's a lot of more tackles that aren't accounted for, and he's in every single tackle.
Yeah, he's always somebody who makes the big plays.
Yes.
Every time I saw him hit somebody, it was always hard, and it was always hard contact. John, who do you got?
I talked about him 2 weeks ago. My defensive player is none other than Nazir Wright. We can pull up the stats right now. He's got 70 total tackles, 16 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 1 interception, and 2 forced fumbles. Now, I was at that Montclair game, and Marc, you were there too.
I think we all were.
I think we all were in spirit. Yes. But he wasn't making the plays, but he was always in the backfield. He was a menace on the defensive side, and I think that's really important for anyone.
Absolutely. Jimmy, close this up.
I'm going to close it out with my guy, Jared Salgado, absolute beast on the defensive end. He's tied for the NJAC second place in total tackles. We see it right here, 84. That's just astounding. 5 tackles for loss, 3 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. They're really going to miss him next year. He is a senior that is departing in defense. Him and Maldonado on the linebacking core just make a humongous difference.
Very, very, very great difference for our linebackers. Both of our linebackers hit hard. That's something that I noticed for every game that I saw. But, in a lot of the games I saw as well, the Pioneers, we were in a lot of tough games this year, a lot of close games. So, John, we're going to start with you first. Out of the victories that we had, and we have 4 of them, which one do you think was the most impressive victory?
I'm going to give you a quote that almost every football coach says. Defense wins games. And the biggest defensive win was against Keene. All right? It was a 20-6 defensive masterpiece. And then there were 11 total defensive stops. But it was 9 out of the 11 players that made those stops. It was a defensive teamwork that made that dream work.
Yes, they only gave up 6 points in that game. So, very effective for the Pioneer defense in that one. Andrew?
The Christopher Newport game. That game was astonishing. They were throwing the ball over the place. We were breaking records left and right.
Yes.
And that was a fun game to watch.
I mean, especially when Matt Clarke, he broke the record.
Yep.
Spencer Lee was close to 500 yards. He had 5 touchdowns. He only had
Matt Clarke had like 280 yards receiving or something like that.
It was in the 300s. He had
300, yeah, you're right.
Absolute great game. Jimmy?
I'm going to got Maritime, big-time victory. The first home victory of the season for the Pioneers. Got the team back to 2-2 on the record. First home victory in a number of seasons. They had over double the rushing yards of Maritime. JoJo Kirby had a 100-yard pick six. It was just an electric atmosphere. I was on the call for the game. Home crowd, big-time impact.
Marc?
I'm taking the 42-14 win away at Keystone. You know, John said defense wins games, but it absolutely does. But when you can combine that with phenomenal offense, scoring 42 points and not letting up a single point after the first quarter, you've got yourself a win. 5 sacks for the Pioneers in that game and 456 total yards of offense.
You know, great game for the Pioneers. I remember that one because that one I saw 42 points. I was like, oh, that was a route there. Yes. So with this one in the books now, let's spin it forward to fall of 2022. You know, there's a lot of different things when seasons come and go. You know, we're going to have a new freshman class. We're going to have the juniors now will be seniors. So, Jimmy, we're going to start with you. What is the focal point that the Pioneers need to key in on for next season?
My focal point for next season is just closing out games. You know, we had a tough loss against Montclair State, tough loss TC&J, Westcon. These are all one-score games I think if the Pioneers could have back, they would. If you can close these games out, flip the record into the more in the win column, Dustin Johnson's going to be a big key point going into next season.
John?
I'll keep it short. Penalties. We have an average of close to 75 free yards on penalties compared to the other team's 52. So if we can get that down as much as possible, we'll win much more games.
Marc?
So building on what Mr. Patton said, finishing games, but in part of that is clock management. There was a big mishap in the game against Montclair State where they should have managed the clock a lot better.
Yeah, that was a tough one to see because they were up that whole game.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, close us out for the block.
Going off what Jimmy said, losing Jared Salgado, losing Shawn Maldonado, you got to fill that linebacker core. You got Nigeria Wright, you got Olajuwon Bell, and Brian King. They need to fill those shoes, and I believe they can.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what goes on for the William Patterson football team in fall of 2022. Look, you got to give a big shout out to Coach Dustin Johnson. You got to give a big shout out to the seniors as well. You know, from where they were to where they are now, you know, winning 4 games from where they were. That's awesome.
Big culture change.
Yeah, big culture change. We can't wait to see what's up for the future. But we're just getting started here. Let's pass it over from Whiteman Stadium to the Rec Center. Keep it locked here for some hoops on WPTV.